Hi, this is JM Nualia, your instructor for the Writing for New Media online course, and we're now on the fifth module, which takes a look at the writing process for the new media platforms. For today's lecture, we're looking at the difference between formal and informal writing and how most of these new media platforms now prefer informal modes of writing. And then we're also looking at the different platforms under the spoken word and the written word, and how the changes in technology have pushed writers to evolve in the words that they use for these types of platforms. And also, we're also looking at the interactivity that comes along with these new media platforms. So, let's take a look. Before we go any further, let's take a review at the definitions of new media. Again, like we've discussed in the previous modules, it is basically the ability to combine text, audio, digital audio, interactive multimedia, virtual reality, the web, email, chat, smartphone, computer applications, or any source of information that is accessible by a personal computer or tablet or any gadget. That's why it's also called digital media. Another definition says that these are new cultural forms which are native to computers or rely on computers for distribution. So when you look at these platforms, these are your websites, human and computer interfaces, virtual worlds, virtual reality, multimedia, computer games, computer animation, digital video, special effects in cinema and net films, as well as interactive computer installations. Now, as long as these media platforms are digital, as long as they are interactive, and as long as they incorporate two-way communication, and then they involve some form of computing, then these means that you are using already a new media platform. Now, what is new about new media comes from the particular ways in which they refashion older media. So when you look at television, the new media platforms refashion them and turn them into what? Like online streaming, like Netflix, or radio, which is refashioned into podcasts. So, and then you also have newspapers that are refashioned into websites or news websites and news magazine websites, uh, or even subscriptions, news online newspaper subscriptions online. So you see that there's that refashioning that happens, and the ways in which older media refashion themselves to answer the challenges of new media, that is also considered an a factor for the new media. So, given those definitions, let's now take a look at how these platforms differ in terms of writing. So, formal and informal writing. So, when you say informal writing, it's the informal language in which you communicate with people that you know well and you relax around. Because when you were born, for instance, you didn't learn how to, let's say, write or speak uh, in formal in a formal manner, right? Like pag anong natuto kang magsalita agad, parang ano na, very uh, good morning, my name is ganyan-ganyan. Hindi naman ganoon. Parang ang una mong matututunan is mama, mga ganoon. Mga informal pa lang na mga exclamation words pa lang, 'di ba? So those are your informal languages. Now, it tends to resemble the way people converse out loud when you talk about informal writing as compared to formal writing, and these feature more contractions. When you say contractions, pinapaiksi mo yung mga words. Let's say when you say instead of they are, it becomes there. Or ano pa ba, imbis na it is not, magiging it isn't. So, the more contractions in your words, in your writing, then it is most likely an informal mode of writing. As well as you can also even use slang words na hindi yan ginagawa sa mga thesis papers or mga formal articles, research papers. So when you use more slangs, when you use more abbreviations, when there are expressions of emotion or even exclamation, then that is considered an informal writing. So take a look at this example we have here. So the sentence here says, "Hey fam, we're hosting a brunch thing at our place this Sunday morning, say 10:30-ish. Hope you can make it. XO." So you see that sentence construction itself, you see so many slang words like fam, like 10:30-ish. There's even that abbreviation XO, which means, diba, hugs and kisses. And uh, there's exclamation, etc. So that's an example of an informal writing. Now, as compared to formal writing, uh, formal language is more serious, basically. It features more construction that is not contracted, meaning hindi ganun, hindi pinapaiksi yung words, hindi there isn't mas binubuo mo yung words. And there is little to no slang at all. So, these are used by professionals when they are dealing with fellow professionals. So, mostly for work, for legal uh, considerations, business issues or proposals, white papers. These are your examples or ways in which you will need a formal mode of writing. So how will you see the difference? For example, here, when you say informally the sentence, usually naka first person point of view yan. Laging merong I, we. So when you say, "I asked the mayor about earthquake preparedness and he said we haven't done enough to be ready." Now when you convert that into a formal mode of writing, there's no more I, no more we. So magiging ano na yan. When asked about earthquake preparedness, Mayor Kim said the city has more work to do. So basically, mas formal. Now, how do you tell which of these two styles are appropriate, especially when you're dealing with new media platforms? Uh, ang tanong din is the media content I'm producing calling for a formal or informal language? Ano sa tingin niyo yung sagot? Well, basically, one major consideration is that when you decide to use formal language and when it's better to write informally, it goes back to the question of who your audience is. So, when your audience is what? A group of professionals, a group of academics, a group of scientists, a group of policymakers, government officials, then most likely you'll be using a formal mode of writing. But if your audience is what, like the millennials, Gen Zs, the masses, then most likely you're going to have to use an informal mode of writing because you need to reach their level of understanding. The way they understand things better is through informal mode of speaking and writing. Now, under the old rules of language, dati kasi when you say informal, ang examples lang yan is that there you use it for conversations when you're talking to yourself when it comes to spoken word, but when it comes to written word, informal lang ang gamit sa texts, sa chats, social media, your personal diaries or notes. And kapag umabot ka na sa speeches, sa radio, television, acting, nagiging formal na siya. And when you're writing books, articles, and when you're writing for websites, formal din daw yun. But these are your old rules. Nowadays, because of the emergence of new media, naghalo-halo na yan ngayon because even when you're writing for radio, even when you're writing for television, even in some books, even in some articles, some of them are already using an informal approach kasi because you're trying to attract more audiences, you want people to be closer to your content, to feel closer to you as the deliverer of the message. So, medyo ganun na ngayon ang trend. But who knows? We don't know what will happen in the next couple of years. It may go back again to a formal mode, or it may persist, the informal writing. But we'll see. But for now, what you need to consider is basically the rule is you need to look at the audience that you will have for your new media content before you decide what kind of style or approach, if it's informal or formal, for your writing. Now, these are some examples of the current slangs or language now used by the millennials and Gen Z generation. Hindi ko na sure if I understand some of them. So, like, for example, I think if I remember it right, yung GOAT is what? Tama ba? Greatest of all time. Tama ba? And then when you say stan, meaning you're, parang ano ba? You're pushing for this, or you're shipping for this person. Then when you say thick, it's a positive term for chubby persons. So, and then you also have receipts. So when you're asking for proof, basically. And then when you say T, it's short for letter. It's another word for letter T, meaning truth. So when you say, instead of saying you want to know the truth, sasabihin mo na lang, just spill the tea. Ganun, di ba? And then you also have glow up, all those words like bay, yas, YOLO, you only live once, bro, sup, and I'm sure marami pa kayong ibang ginagamit nowadays. So, why am I saying these examples? Because maybe some of your content will have to contain these words already, because you're trying to reach and attract more audiences based on how they speak as well. Looking closer at the spoken word, when you look at the spoken word, these are things that have to be delivered through speaking. So, ano ba yung mga ganon na media platforms? These are your television, radio, cinema, and these platforms have shows like news programs, television dramas, comedies, radio shows, and in the new media, there's also podcasts, and there's even films. So, when you're looking at these types of content, you consider that you have to write for a spoken word. Meaning, when you write considering that the words that you are writing are going to be spoken, not read. So, given that it's a spoken word, the basic rules from the past would probably still apply, na dapat simple sentences, because no one speaks in complex sentences when they're speaking most of the time. So that's one example. Other rules include what, mas maraming ang contractions, because it's more conversational. You don't use highfalutin words or complex words, because that's not how normal people speak. So these are your basic rules. So considering that we now have new media, ano na yung magiging rules when it comes to writing for these types of spoken word platforms? So basically ganun pa rin naman sa news. It still is almost close to a formal mode of writing. Doesn't normally use the first person point of view. So, for example, here, sinasabi dito, President Rodrigo Duterte extends the enhanced community quarantine in Metro Manila and parts of Luzon until May 15. Meantime, the rest of the country will be placed under a general community quarantine. So you see that the sentence construction, they're simple sentences, they're Still conversational, but they're not first person. Hindi siya yung I, we, hindi ganun. Uh, and then, but when it's not a news, uh, when it's teleserye, for example, so meaning these are characters that have to talk to themselves like they're real people. So, imbes na ganyan yung pagkakasabi na parang sa news, ang sasabihin mo, ang example natin dito, Bes, in-extend na naman ni Digong yung ECQ, tapos GCQ naman yung iba. Kaya pa ba natin to, girl? Ganon. So, so that's an example. So, you see, there's more conversation, there's more uh, mas closer to reality, basically. Now, when we talk about the written word, it's almost the same as spoken word, just a little bit different. Uh, Now, you look at ano yung platforms ba usually ng mga written word. Yung we have books, you have newspapers, or yung counterpart niya sa new media, the online news articles, and considered na rin namang new media yung mga messaging apps or chats and the social media or social networking sites. So, I have here an example kasi medyo viral sila in their recent past, yung angkas, because of the way they tend to write their content nowadays kasi they're trying to appeal to their target market. So you see there this Twitter post that I am showing you now. It says here, "Thank you mga pangit, ang lakas ko sa inyo ah. Bakit kami nang hingi ng donations nyo para sa kanila? Sa totoo lang, kahit gusto namin kami lang, hindi talaga kakayanin. Kaya sana matulungan nyo kami." Tapos sabi nila, "Donate here." And then there's a link. So, it's very masa yung approach nung pagkakasulat nila because they're trying to appeal to the masses. So, that's one consideration basically. Kaya ganun yung content nila. But when you look at yung picture, mas formal yung laman, di ba? Nakalagay doon, no? Thank you for supporting the bikers. Ganyan-ganyan. All proceeds will go to purchasing goods in bulk prices to support the most affected bikers, etc. So, yung caption yung nag-iba, yung to make it more conversational. So, you see there's now a a difference in terms of writing for these platforms because of the way because of the need really to appeal to your audiences. And the key here is basically you need to understand your audience well. And how do you do that, diba? You have to immerse yourself to your audience. You have to do proper research, survey it's even, just to have a real grasp of the target market that you want to reach. Another important aspect here is to understand or to create a tone of voice when you're writing already. And the goal here is for you to bridge the gap between writing and emotions. Kasi sometimes when you write, uh, tend to forget that you need to write for, especially if it's a spoken word platform, you need to remember that you're writing for the ear, not for the eyes. So, dapat kung paano ko maririnig, pleasant siyang pakinggan kapag binasa na. So, that's why it's also a big consideration yung emotions, ano yung mararamdaman nila. So there needs to be a strong feeling. And another consideration when you look at it naman when it comes to the written word is because when you read it, kasi 'di ba pag written word binabasa lang siya, hindi siya pinapakinggan. So kapag binabasa siya, ang hirap minsan ma-decipher yung emotion nung na gustong ipahiwatig nung nagsulat. So, dun pumapasok ngayon yung other aspects of writing like all caps kapag galit or mga commas kapag may mga pauses or mga dot 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 kapag may mga brief or long pauses in between. And the more innovative way is the use of emojis. So, doon mas clear kung ano yung emotion na pinapahiwatig nyo. Kaya, it's also useful when you're trying to make captions for the written word platforms like yung mga social media posts or chats. Diba? It's really helpful if you have even these emojis. So, those are your considerations when you write already. Now, I'm not going to give you more details into the writing process because I'm sure you already tackled that in your script writing subjects and other subjects as well. So, really, I'm just reminding you here in this module to really consider your audience when you're writing for each platform that you are assigned to. Another thing uh, is to consider that the new media is basically interactive. So when it's interactive, for example, Facebook Live, 'di ba? So uh, when it's live, when your show is live, then it means you have to consider also the comments by your viewers. So there's also different levels of interactivity. So when you look at the layers of interactivity, it says here that there are three layers. So first is interactivity with the medium itself. For example, if it's an online article, so it's a written word, pero meron kang power to include hyperlinks. So those hyperlinks can either be videos, podcasts, pictures, etc. So yung online articles mo, hindi na lang siya article per se. It becomes interactive because it leads the readers to other websites as well. So mas interactive siya in that sense. Another layer is interactivity with other users through the medium, just like in social media sites or online discussion forums. So what happens here is that uh, because of your content uh, and users through that medium can comment, can send feedback, and because they send feedback, you can either be also be obliged to respond because they are your audiences. And another layer, the third layer, is interactivity as engagement with social institutions as when the medium is used for deliberative purposes. So meaning, ito na yung deliberate talaga na you're really asking for feedback. Hindi lang siya yung nagfi-feedback yung audience mo because they have the power to, but basically because you are deliberately asking for their feedback. So, because of this characteristic of new media, unlike traditional media na walang power yung audience to feedback, uh, basic consideration na siya ngayon for the way you write your content. So, when you see na nag-comment yung isang sa Facebook Live mo na, uy, mali yung sinabi niya. Mali yung sinabi ng host nyo. So, pwede mo nang i-correct live. Na, okay, may isang nag-comment na mali yung sinabi namin. Tama po kayo and we stand corrected. And that happens. So, that's the power of interactivity. So, you can see here for example, in this show on CNN International, it's called CNN Talk with Max Foster. They deliberately ask for comments from their Facebook Live. And kahit commercial breaks sa television, uh, nakikita pa rin ng audience yung hosts and the guests dun sa Facebook Live. And they can interact with them during the commercial gap in the Facebook Live. Kaya meron ditong nakalagay, join the conversation in the comments below. Tapos meron silang question that they ask the audience. And what happens now is, hindi lang nila binabasa, pinapakita pa nila sa screen yung mga comments. And ayan, nakikita nyo. Yung tanong nila is, will Brexit bankrupt Britain? Tapos may isang sumagot dito, Brexit is about who we are as a people. The money will always follow, sabi ni David Williams. So that's one aspect of interactivity that makes these new media platforms more different than ever. And that's how they refashion the traditional media, like television, na hindi na lang siya television per se na pinanonood, kundi nakakapag-react na yung audience, as you can see in this example. Another example is sa entertainment aspect naman. This is one I remember. This was 2003 or 2004 teleserye in ABS-CBN, Sana'y Wala Nang Wakas. What happened here is that because it was so popular, yung love triangle ni Christine Hermosa, Dieter Ocampo, and Jericho Rosales, sa sobrang hati ng audience sa dalawang love team, nagkaroon sila ng two endings. And and ang pinalabas nila sa TV for for the finale was kung sino yung nanalo through the text votes. So ganun ka powerful, 'di ba? Yung interactivity na nangyari. Uh, Tao ang nag-decide kung paano matatapos yung teleserye, and that's a first in television, if I'm not mistaken, 'di ba? Comment down below if you know other shows na ganun, 'di ba? I think even sa Netflix may ganung reality show, 'di ba, na ikaw na yung pipili kung ano yung next na gagawin ng character. And yun. So ang nangyari pa dito sa teleserye na to, after nilang ipalabas kung sino yung nanalo, the following night nung weekend yata, pinalabas nila yung alternative ending, yung natalo sa text votes. So win-win siya dun sa mga audiences na gusto pareho yung dalawang endings. Now, so I guess that ends the module for today. I hope you learned something. Normally I would have wanted you guys to try writing for one new media platform so we can see how you apply these formal and informal writing techniques, how you are going to be creative when it comes to thinking of these content. But since we're on a quarantine period, I wouldn't want you to really put much effort. Reflection paper na lang talaga yung hihingin ko sa inyo. So, let me know what you think of this module, what you've learned, or what else you want to know, and I hope to see you again in the next module.